There we go. Just need to move your video backward. Right? Why? Why am I in the background and you are not? Oh, that's why. There we go. That's what it's supposed to look like. Okay. Nearly working. Got almost all of it working.
I feel like if someone was like recording that, that would have been a really great gif of just me like ping-ponging from either side.
See, that's why this is the pre-show.
No, I mean legit. Like someone could easily be watching this right now and be like, "Man, like Ryan is super into this music."
I mean,
and
it is legit music. Let's just be honest.
Oh no, there's a very hey seriously man, there's like a very John Carpenter-y like vibe to this.
Oh yes. I didn't even dawn on me. This almost makes me think of like Stranger Things or something. It's almost got that sort of
100%.
Dude, I did not even plan that. That was totally a fluke.
Oh no. Right away, like right when I was hearing this music, I was like, "Oh man, this is really cool. This is very John Carpenter." And I mean, it's like Halloween. We're so close to it. We could do a whole show, by the way, Jeff, on directors who are great with music, and one of them is John Carpenter, but another one is like Jim Cameron. Like the original Terminator score, I want to say he helped to develop.
Really?
Yeah, Jim Cameron, man.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I feel like the multidisciplinary directors are always so great. Or a director that has like a really great relationship with a composer, because music brings so much like emotion to movies. I've been watching this guy. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go pull him up now. I just started subscribing to him on YouTube, and I'd totally give a plug to him. Listening In, and he has like a multi-part series where he talks about the Lord of the Rings music. And oh my gosh, like Howard Shore, that guy's a genius. Like I've always thought that music was great, but the breakdown, like the complexity that's there. Oh, and there's a cool thing, like we could maybe save this for another time, but there's a really cool breakdown that he does in Star Wars. And he does a review of John Williams music for Star Wars, and and the samples that he takes are from the prequels, Duel of the Fates, from the original trilogy. He does Princess Leia's theme, and then which is bar none like one of my favorite themes. It's like her theme and Yoda's theme are great. And then for the sequel trilogy, he does this amazing reveal of a thing that I didn't even know, that musically there is a special clue that lets you know about the twist in The Last Jedi.
Really?
And yes, and it like blew my mind. I was just like, yeah, Listening In. It's a great channel. If you like learning about music and movies, it's a great channel.
Awesome. We are officially live. I'll say it again when we get live, but we are officially live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and I think if it worked, we are live on Twitch as well.
Oh snap! That's awesome.
Yep, I got a page set up for us today. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll double check and make sure it's good. But how about we go live onto the regular page and we'll get started with this funness.
To the regular page.
Let's do it. Dude, what's up?
Hey, long time no see.
Right?
But hey, seriously, it's like super excited. I look forward to Thursdays. Every evening. It was actually I had the like most nerdy experience ever. I was talking about how I was like, oh man, like Thursday nights are always the best, and someone was like, oh, are you like a Thursday night football fan? And I was like,
You're
"Oh
like,
no, it's a
no.
no. I co-host a Star Wars podcast. Tell me more about this football."
Football? I'm sorry, what is this?
On a serious note, it is one of those things where it's like I look forward to this so much. I play oddly though. I play a ton of fantasy football. I'm not a huge football person, but I play a ton of fantasy football because man, this is gonna sound so nerdy. I love data. Like I love crunching numbers, and once I figured out that so much of fantasy football was like looking at data, I was like, oh, I'm gonna love this. And I am currently in one league. I'm doing terribly, but in one of my main leagues, I've only lost one game, and I just probably jinxed it by saying that. But it's one of these things where it's like I love data, like I love predictability, I love analytics, I love sitting down and going, okay, like what's this going to be, what's the history of this team versus that team. So yeah, I've even taken football and like made it super nerdy, so
Nice.
good times.
It's speaking of football, I've been watching wife and I've been watching Ted Lasso. Have you seen
I
it
love
yet?
that show.
Oh, dude.
I love Ted Lasso.
So I got like one of the first episode and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And everyone, all my friends are messaging me, family was like, you are gonna love this. I'm like, okay. And I didn't go back to it because I got bored one night. And then my wife was like, we need to watch this together. I got through 3 episodes. You have to watch it. We just finished season 1 last night, or 2 nights ago, and watched the first episode of season 2 last night. And I'm like, can this day just be over so I can go watch it? Like every day has been like, I need days to be over so I can watch. I'm like, dude, go to bed. I need to watch Ted Lasso.
Oh man, no, it's Ted Lasso's great. I there are times at work, Jeff, where I'm saying to myself, barbecue sauce. I'm not joking around. Right before we started the all hands today, Jeff, I said to myself, barbecue sauce. So yeah, I love that show. I feel, and not to like force a Star Wars connection, but I like Star Wars came out at a time when like movies were all about the bad guy or the anti-hero, and that's cool. But at the time it was like it was the 70s. I mean, what was good about the 70s? And and I'm not that's not me banging on the 70s. Even though
Like,
there's no way to
dude,
walk that
just
back.
dropping the hammer the moment we walk in the door.
There's no way to walk that back. But what I mean is that the 70s were rough. And I mean, the president left the White House on a helicopter and was like, bye everybody, I'm leaving. He
was like, peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, no, literally, peace. Peace.
Yeah,
Actually,
bye.
literally peace.
I'm out. And so it was like a breath of fresh air for Star Wars. Like, I think that's what, like, why it resonated so much, is because it was a time where it was really hard to have hope. And then Star Wars was like literally a new hope. And I think that's what we need. That's why I think Ted Lasso is like this thing that people love. And it's because it's kind of a great show about someone who has just the best intentions. And it's just like trying to be a good person in the world. And yeah, like I even in the face of so many things that are working against him, it's I gotta say, like that indomitable spirit, just I think it's like what the world wants.
Yeah, there was a line from one of the last couple of episodes, I forget which one it was, where his friend, I think he just calls him Beard. I forget his actual name, or character's actual name, but he just calls him Beard. And his friend said, do you remember what you said to me when X happened? And Ted's like, blah, blah. He goes, no, you said to me, all people are different people. And I'm like, that was like one of the most profound lines I think I've ever heard. Like, it's so simple, but it's such a good reminder of like, yeah, they're just okay. Yes. Like it answers like so many questions when you start thinking about it. Oh
Oh
man, yeah.
yeah.
Like every night I watch that, I learn something. I especially loved his bit of vengeance on the ex-husband playing
Oh
darts.
yeah.
He totally
Yeah,
pulled a
man.
Princess Bride. He 100% pulled a Princess Bride. When the guy opens up his little case, he's like, "Oh, did I forget to tell you? I'm actually left-handed."
Oh
I'm
no,
like, "Oh
I love that.
man." I was like, oh, I'm like, he's Wesley. He's Wesley.
Um, on a side note, by the way, Jeff and I participated in a virtual murder mystery this week, and one part of it was iocane powder was used. So if you're a Princess Bride
Yes,
fan,
it
you
was
know what that
awesome.
is. And one of the questions we asked one of the suspects was, "Do you like the Princess Bride?" And she said no. And right there, that should have been
You're like,
and
guilty.
she was the killer. And
It's like
right there, Jeff.
basically all I heard like in the background was the wife
Yeah.
from the husband and wife in the woods and in Princess Bride, liar, liar, you're like
Yeah,
you
Miracle
are
Max.
objectively wrong. Nobody not doesn't like that movie. Nobody doesn't like that movie.
Yeah, also a great reference that she did to Clue about the flames on the side of my face. Right when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I know that." But the thing though that that I love about and I know this isn't the Lasso chat, but again, I feel like it's because like Star Wars really like connects with people because it has all of these characters and all these things that you can be hopeful about, and I think that's what really gets people connected to Ted Lasso. And oh man, like I think that that whole scene with the ex-husband was great, like
Mm-hmm.
where he's like, my son's, there's a big sign at my son's school and it says, it's a quote by Walt Whitman, "Be curious." And that's when I realized those guys, they were being they were being judgmental. Or what was it? It was don't be curious, don't judge. And it was like, if those guys had only been curious and not judged, they
Mm-hmm.
would have asked me questions like, people would ask me questions like, "Ted, do you like to play darts?" And Bullseye, "Yes." I played darts every day from when I was a little boy to 16, every Saturday. It's just this great set of lines. But yeah, I absolutely love that show, and I hope a lot of people are able to watch it, just because it is one of those things where it's like it makes you feel good watching it. I even love the references, like I had a manager a long time ago that bought everybody books to help them connect with their leader, their inner leader, and everybody got a book, and which was a very like big manager practice back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cool. Like I still have it. And what's funny about that is that he buys everybody books, and he buys what does he buy, Roy? The Wrinkle in Time.
The Wheel in Time? No.
Wrinkle in Time.
A Wrinkle in Time. Yes. And he's like,
yeah.
and then
Yeah,
when
I
Roy's
love
reading
that.
the book, he puts it down and he goes like, "Fuck," because he totally realizes it actually resonates with him, and he's like, "God damn it!" It's good. It is awesome. It is a fantastic moment.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it so much.
His character, yeah, and Roy's character has like changed so much. I love how that dynamic is working out. It's really it's good to see the two characters. Yeah. When you can tell too, like how they write two characters together worked so well. It's him and Keeley, seemingly so different, yet they work super well together. Like I think it's almost like for me, it's almost like the epitome of a good relationship, or what a relationship, especially a like committed partner relationship, should actually look like. I don't mean male, female, or whatever identity, but I mean two people who are seemingly very different personalities and different types of people able to make a thing together that works, and as well be separate people too. They are like, they come together and things work, and they do their own things and things work. They just happen to like to spend lots of time together and commit things together. I'm like, it's a really good thing to watch because they're very different people and they play off of each other real well, but they don't try to like, they have not made the characters try to like become the other character, so to speak.
Yep. No, I completely agree. And what's also really crazy is I'm gonna keep forcing a Star Wars Ted Lasso connections. the guy who plays Roy had a very Harrison Ford on the set of Star Wars moment. Like Harrison Ford's, basically at this point, like he's doing a lot of acting. He's like Bob Falfa and American Graffiti, and he's like getting all these like little jobs with like Francis Ford Coppola, and but he's really just doing a lot of carpentry work. And he ends up sitting down and doing sides for auditions, and they end up, George Lucas is like, no, that guy is Han Solo, and being adjacent to the set ends up in the movie, and takes that role from Kurt Russell, who, by the way, I also think could have done a great job. Kurt Russell's playing Han Solo in almost 99% of his films, including Overboard. And the thing that's funny is that the guy who plays Roy was a writer for the show. And
Really?
they were like, because I was like, who is this guy? Like, why haven't I seen this guy in more stuff? And then come to find out, oh, he's a writer. He was just a writer for the show. And the producers for the show were like, this character, you're writing him. He's you got to play this guy. And so he was, he had to get into that character and actually like build him up. And so it was really, really kind of a funny thing. I always think it's really cool when that kind of like kismet thing happens, or like a last minute change, like Lord of the Rings switching out Stuart Townsend for Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn while they were filming. Like I always think that that's like crazy, or like the what could have been. It's like there were a lot of different people. Like Walter Matthau auditioned for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Really?
That was a real
Interesting.
different movie. Yeah,
That would
really
be a very
different
movie.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, just I could be mixing up that with this SNL skit, but I don't think I am. I think he's in the SNL skit, and they actually approached him to be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That was surreal.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know, totally.
So, shall we dive into
Yes.
that?
Let's do it.
I really wanted to drop a bomb when I posted all the posts earlier. First off, actually, Rich, hey, how are you, dude?
Hey, Rich.
It's good to see you, buddy.
How you doing, man?
I tried to drop a little bomb, like just drop the thing, like, have you heard they're going completely CGI? No? Yeah, no, we didn't hear that either. Like that's really not what the article says. But, I was reading through that article, and I have to say that another article, this happened to me yesterday or the day before. I'll get to the connection in a sec, but I was reading or I saw a headline that came up about some controversial sort of lawsuit thing that's happening that most people are aware of, but I'm not going to give the details. And I had read the headline. I'm like, what the heck? This is terrible. And then I happened to see a TikTok yesterday where, in the TikTok, a gal who's a lawyer said, let me explain some misconceptions in this and kind of walk through it. And I was like, I totally am guilty of seeing that headline and going and reacting without actually understanding context behind what's going on. And so in this case, when we were talking about this, I saw the headline, even for the article, saying that this is what they're doing. And I was like, wait, what? Why would they? That doesn't make sense. And of course, my first reaction inside was, wait, what? No, that does. And then I read it, I'm like, oh, no, that's not at all what they're saying, even remotely. And then I watched one of the videos, which we'll pull up here in a few minutes, of one of the, I think it's one of the VFX directors for Lucasfilm, said they're not moving away. They're not replacing one with the other entirely. There's a place for both of these things that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. But the whole topic tonight for everyone watching is that if you haven't seen it, if you watch The Mandalorian, and if you haven't watched the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, they use this thing that all the actors and people who work on the set just generally refer to as the volume, or the volume set, which is this 360, well, it's on a 2-degree plane, it's 360s around. It's also got a roof, and it's all LED panels. Even the entrance you walk through gets closed.
Yep.
And filming happens inside of this volume set with full LED screen that surrounds, and it's big. It's probably a good 50, 60 feet across in all directions, and 30 or 40 feet tall easily. And we can pull up some of the video footage here in just a minute, but it's a really interesting article because it talks a lot about how how much they're learning by being able to do this. And one of the biggest challenges with using green screens specifically, we'll get to the CGI part in a second, but the green screens is that one of the hardest things with green screens is getting lighting proper, because what you see in a green screen, like virtual meetings, whatever else you use, one of the tools that puts a virtual background, whatever, the image, you would naturally imagine that image to have some sort of natural lighting in it. And if you are not part of if you are not lit like that natural lighting in whatever the image is, you are very clearly not in that space. And that's what, like, look at old James Bond films or other old films where someone's driving the car and there's it's not a green screen, but a type of technology behind them where they can roll a video behind them, and then there's the vehicle in the front. The problem is it's a stationary camera, and the moment you want to change that perspective and line of sight for the camera, everything just looks wonky. It just doesn't work. It looks like you're just doing this and things are just kind of shifting, like someone's holding a board behind you. It doesn't look right. And I think it's the same sort of problem with green screens, is that there's no natural lighting or lighting that can match what's in the background, so you look forcefully out of place. It is extremely obvious that you're on a green screen unless the lighting is done really, really well. And so this set allows the viewer, and actually allows the art director, the lighting director, everybody to the screens, the LED screens actually create tons of light. And so when Din Djarin is on like a speeder or something sitting on the sand, it's a stationary thing on a mound of a few rocks inside this set, but the light that's supposed to be on him is coming from those LEDs. So he's actually, his armor is reflecting light from the set in the direction the light is coming, so he looks like he is actually in the set.
It's funny. It's a technology that I feel like up until really recently that you couldn't do, and it's one of these things that like I was totally fooled by, and what I mean by that is I was never taken out of the experience. Like, I can watch several parts of Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith and I will be lifted out of the experience because of what's happening with the special effects in the background. Like, there are times in Camino where I'm like, man, I cannot follow what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. Like, nothing has weight to it. Nothing seems to be in the right perspective. And I think that's one of the challenges with green screen, is that you lose depth. And then things start to look overproduced. It's once they realize they can do like super takes, which is like a cool thing, but it like takes the natural part of filmmaking out. Like, you could just like make anything into a movie. It robbed something. And so I really like this volume technology. I think it's really, really cool. It reminds me a lot of what Stanley Kubrick was trying to do with front screen projection in 2001. Like, I knew that a lot of that was on a set, but I didn't realize it. Like, the sequence where the like the panther attacks in the night or in the day, I thought that looks like a set, but it's got really good background. That's front screen projection. They're projecting the image of the, like, Serengeti, like, behind the actors, and they're having them act in front of it. And that's exactly like kind of what this is, except the difference is that they're able to use AI to automatically modify, like, wherever the camera is, to be able to produce the appropriate amount of depth behind it. And so on that ice planet in the very first episode, I remember thinking, oh wow, like, this is really cool, like, this is amazing how they did this. And all of that is like a set, and that's just that ring of screen behind them that changes with depth depending on where the camera location is. It's unbelievable.
It lets them bring in the Unreal. So from Epic Games, the company Epic Games, it lets them bring in the Unreal Engine. So the Unreal Engine that was created for gaming, that's been used tried and true for years now in so many different games. So they're able to use, like you said, that particular AI engine to, one of the scenes actually show, I think in this video, I'll try to pull it up here so people can kind of watch while we're talking. Hopefully it, where is it? I thought I had it queued up. I'll try to find it. Anyway, I had it queued up here a second ago. So this will play and you can watch it. And as it continues, you'll see that I think there's a scene where it shows while they're on one of the sets when
Oh yeah.
says I'm signed out. That's okay. In the set, what it shows in one of the sets is there's a scene where Jen is he's on that he agreed to go with those with that crew to go try to rob something, and he's of course being set up to do it. And there's a scene where I forget the creature race, but he's got the two horns, kind of looks like a demon, is walking around some people, and you see the set. Like it's like the camera's perspective is changing and the set's moving at the same time, and they're able to do that in this because they're able to actually, like you said, track the camera angle to the image behind the actors. So even though it might be a little distracting for an actor on the front, what you would see, what you see in the film or in the video footage, is you actually see a perspective difference. Like you said, you see a depth, you see a perspective change, so it follows as if you're really on a set and a camera is following you. And it makes such a huge difference because you don't have to... Actually, yeah, there you go. You can see that it's... Everywhere that it was saying Huckleberry, there is a screen. It's a huge, huge environment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right there, that was the interior of a ship. That shows you that when they were in the ship, that's a set. And it's like... I mean... Just as someone who appreciates making movies, like that to me is like, what then can't you build?
Yeah,
you could build any, like, and in a convincing way, because look, there it is right there. Look, that hallway, that shifting image of the hallway is because that's not a physical structure. Yeah,
I love like this scene right here when he kind of crash lands his ship and he gets the couple together and they land there. It's so fascinating because they can basically build the bigature, or they can build the small portion of the set that is necessary that the actors physically really need to interact with in order to get the best possible encounter for the actor on screen, so they can really feel like it's real and portray their actual acting there. While the rest of it doesn't need to be there. It can be this. But what it also does, even if it's not physically there, the actors can see it. So they don't have to think, oh, there's this mountain in the distance over here that is really, it's almost its own character in its own right. I don't have to think about it in like, hopefully we're all looking at the same point. No, I can actually see it. It's right there. There it is in the distance, right there. I can look at it and go, oh, wow, I can see this person walking toward me, or I can see this action happening, and I don't have to imagine it anymore. I can just be in the scene, and then you save all kinds of money. You don't have to go on set anywhere. You don't have to or go on location and do all of that. It's huge. It makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I really like this. I'm a big fan of practical effects, and I know that that's like a really popular thing to say. Everybody loves practical effects, but what I mean by that is that I feel like if you bring something in front of the camera while you're shooting, it's going to be 10 out of 10 better than anything that you can put in post. That there's not, outside of Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies, there's not a lot of things that I'm like, yeah, that looked better. You know what I mean? Like, I like this because I feel like it's the merging of CGI with practical. That it is a set that's around physical actors that they're able to walk around in, and I just think it like changes everything. But I one of the things that I loved is that there's a sequence in I think it's the episode The Prisoner of The Mandalorian. It's episode 6 of the first season. And he jumps into hyperspace, and hyperspace is happening all around him because it's a screen that's in front of the ship. Hyperspace is happening all around him, and it's reflecting off of his helmet and his shoulders. And it is like one of the coolest shots that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I think of how this type of technology would have changed something like the pod racing sequence, which was just a lot of like Jake Lloyd having his hands up and them saying, just keep going, Jake, you're going really fast, Jake, you're going really, like, think about being able to see everything moving around you and knowing that you're, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, looking at this video, for example, it's exactly what I mean. Like, being able to be in a space that's actually showing you that movement, although I'm sure it's got to make you sick.
Oh, I mean, sure. Oh my gosh, like, yes. Yeah, I was thinking about that watching this. Like, if you're inside, if Dan's inside of his inside of the Razor Crest and he's watching hyperspace here. But if you're anyone outside of the Razor Crest at that moment, all you're seeing is this, and you're like, oh, it's one of those moments like, just pick a point and look straight ahead or look at the ground, because if I don't do this, it's going to be like that old Universal Studios ride. I think it was called Avalanche, and when you'd be in it,
Oh yeah.
it just spun, and it made the ground feel like you're doing this, and oh my god, you'd get so sick riding that ride.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just look at that and I just think, oh man, like I'd be like upside down sick at this. But again, like this is exactly what we've been talking about, which is oddly this is like it's a new way of doing the old way.
So here's actually, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Here's the spot right here.
No,
You
no,
can
go ahead.
see it showed that character. Some of these characters in the foreground, they are lit on the front. And even in some of the other places, these are the key places. Is it's dark in here and it's light outside. Well, you can't do that really well with a green screen outside. So if there was a green screen outside that door, you could have the set and there's a doorway. If there's a green screen out there, you could project, you could add CG afterwards. But how do you recreate the amount of light and know that the amount of light on the day that you are shooting to put in that space to match the CG, the computer animation you're going to put on later on, and make sure they fit so that what's showing on the green screen there in the background matches the lighting so they feel like they're immersive. It's like you said, it's next to impossible to do that. And here we can see these characters on the screen, and you just saw it with Din. He's standing there, and the right kind of reflection, the lights are coming from the right direction, or the appropriate direction for the scene, and it makes you feel like he's really in this place. When he walks through a doorway and walks outside, the lights are coming. If there's an obstacle in some place, and there would be a shadow, that shadow shows up on him. So you feel like this person is in the place that they're actually being portrayed on the screen.
Yeah, and again, I think that I feel like our brains are wired to look for things like the uncanny valley. They're built to look for things that are more real than real, or whatever it is, you know. And that's why sometimes I feel like I'll get pulled out of a movie if it's like, oh, this is a mess. Like I don't know what I'm watching right now. I've lost all depth and perspective. This character's too dark, but they're in a bright setting. It's like, why does this work? And you were talking about this too in like meeting settings, like because we host a lot of virtual meetings, and I know a lot of people like those virtual backgrounds, and sometimes, man, that lighting is like spot on. Like this right now is a virtual background behind me. But seriously, the some of the lighting, it works out great. But then sometimes it's like the person's really dark, and the lighting on them is very dark, and so then the thing behind them is brightly lit, and so then it's this odd contrast, takes you right out of it. But I always think of Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and the droid factory sequence, and how there are moments when, man, that looks great, and then there are moments where I'm like, this looks like total garbage.
It is so hard to watch. It really is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, the scene. I mean, putting aside the acting and the choreography, because we have all kinds of thoughts on those. I specifically have all kinds of thoughts on those.
Yeah.
Most of them are not positive. But
no, not at all.
The CG and that and the green screen used in that is so. I think you said the right word. It's almost garbage. It's just it's for me. It's that I don't know if you ever watched that show, How I Met Your Mother. There was one episode where someone talks about Ted's girlfriend talks too much. And he's like, I don't see it until he finally does, and then you hear the glass shatter, and he's like, once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. And now every time I know, now that we just you and I pay attention to these things, every time I watch that movie, I can't unsee all of the CG stuff that's happening, and it's if someone would go, well, if you just watch it and ignore, like, it, just don't think about it, like they're cartoon, like, yes, they're graphics and that's fine. That's not the problem. The problem is the interaction between the actors and the CG is so bad that there is clipping. Yeah. There's like clipping that happens where a lightsaber goes through something that it shouldn't be able to go through, or a person steps in a place that their foot shouldn't be able to step because there's an obstacle there, and it's like, oh god, it's like, how did you, I know it's easy to miss these things because there's so much movement happening, but it's like, but that's kind of your job, is to make sure that we don't miss these, because every time I see it, like now all I see is just, I see that. I lose the immersion because it's now like I'm on set watching the sausage being made. And that's not a terrible thing, but because the story and the acting there wasn't, and the choreography wasn't also really, really good, it means like everything is now seen. It's almost like I'm on set watching all of it happen, and I watch all the things happen in sequence, the editing and the CG and all. So I've watched it all now, and so now all I can see is those individual pieces. I can no longer view a cohesive setting and go, oh, this is enjoyable. And then it's like, ugh, okay, great.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that it's funny. The prequels really piloted a lot of this stuff, which was then like totally taken to a crazy extreme, like the Transformers movies. And even though I agree with you, I actually like the first Transformers movie. The Phantom Menace was this movie, though, that they hadn't really perfected that technology yet, so they still had a ton of practical effects. And ILM had just done one of the biggest practical effects plus CGI movies ever, which was Titanic. And I didn't realize how much computer graphics were in Titanic until it was like ILM did a whole thing on it. Like they were like, yeah, like this isn't even there, that's not there, all of these things. They shot it in a giant tank set, and a lot of that water and everything is legit and real, but there's a lot of really cool CGI that's done, but it's done sparingly and on like to assist the story as it's going along. Episode 1 oddly does kind of a lot of the same things, because they're still building all these sets and they're still building all these things. And in fact, it's a huge problem, because they build all the sets, and then Liam Neeson comes on set and he's like 4 inches taller than they knew, and so then they have to like add like a full foot to the top of all of the sets, and it was terrible. It was like this big disaster. And I feel like because of the reaction to episode 1, because it wasn't what Lucas was expecting, because it cost him so much money, he really pulled back. And in episode 2, it was, I'm going to show people that you can do anything with computers. And one of the things that always stuck out to me was when they're in Camino, which again is like the perfect place to use this. It's like an otherworldly thing. I love the alien design. It's like that I'm here for. But they made like a carpet that Obi-Wan walks on. Like they made that CGI, and I was like, why did you do that? Why not just put a carpet there? And it stands in such like contrast to when you go into like Boba and Jango Fett's apartment, and it's like it's like just it's a real set, and so you're in that space, you get the feeling of that space. When they're fighting out on the platform, outside of the fact that all the background is CGI, you understand location, depth, where the actors are in relation to one another. Except then at the end, it goes crazy and it's all CGI again. This is one of these things where it's like, you got to get the right balance. And I don't know what the threshold is. It's like one of those things where it's like, I can't tell you when to stop, but I know when you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And that's, you get a lot of that, especially in Attack of the Clones.
I feel like, like you said, it's a fine balance. And I feel like, the places where the balance is crossed into the wrong direction is when a director or a producer decides, let's do this because we can, not because it's needed.
Yeah.
Or those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. But I think if there's a situation like, for example, and I don't remember watching this, I have to go back and look again, but can you see Obi-Wan's wet footprints and dripping water on the carpet when he's walking in the CG?
Oh, no, exactly. Yeah, no, there's no dripping water. There's no, it's a planet covered in rain. Nothing's wet. It doesn't make any sense at all. Except outside, there's water everywhere.
Well, and there's not even a double door when he comes into the station. Like it's not like you walk like Vegas where you walk through the one door and the second door. He just walks through the door and it's dry and everybody's copacetic. That I'm with you. That like I get it. it would be an expensive set, a grouping of sets to build. I totally understand that. So maybe do more bigatures, like do where
Yes.
overlay some CG on top of a bigature, like make people walk
Yes.
around, or use an engine, a CG engine of some kind to create people in a distance moving around, but create a big miniature to do that sort of filming on with a camera that can fly around it and feel like it's a real thing.
Yep.
But yeah, you got to have a carpet. Like it's like if your expenses were so trimmed by the CG you use that you couldn't afford to buy a red carpet, I think you have a different set of problems when it comes to making your film. It's like, because little things like that make a difference, because whether someone that actively notices it or it's unconscious, something like that where you walk in and you don't see wet footprints behind a person because he's dripping wet from the rain that he just walked out of. There was like a thing. He got out of his thing, put his hood on because he's being poured in rain. Like, it was obvious. And then you transition to like, no, we're cool. Nobody else here's noticing this. It's like, okay. Like, his hair is even slicked back when he gets inside. Like, I'm harping on this too long. But my point is that...
no.
Like, it's... That line is crossed too much. Even today, it's crossed too. And I think this is where the whole green screen idea comes into play. It's like, it's cheap. Green screens are, I mean, relatively speaking, they're inexpensive. You buy it, you shape it up, you overlay some CG on top of it. That's pretty well-known technology at this point. I think it's got to be relatively easy to do. I mean, relative to other techniques you can use. But I think it still comes down to, like, what are you trying to make something because it's cheap and easy? Well, then maybe why are you making it? Like, if you can't put the time and energy and the money into doing it the right way, then maybe this isn't content you should be putting out there.
No, and I feel like George Lucas was always kind of fighting with that. Like, he always had a really big idea, and then sometimes he's like, we're going to go big on this. Like, we're going to do this. And honestly, that's why I feel like Phantom Menace is, man, I can't believe how much praise I'll give Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is like a cinematic movie. Like, it is a film. When you watch it, it is like legitimately a film. They are shooting in that palace. They are shooting at these locations. And I know that they did location shooting in episode 2, but I mean, episode 1 is like cinematic. It is beautiful. And there's all of this set design that goes with it. And they have bigatures, like the when they're walking through Theed in Naboo. All of those are bigatures. And I feel like what movies are, and this is going to sound silly, but I feel like what movies are is they are like a magic trick. They are trying to convince you that one thing is happening when really, the rabbit's at the bottom of the hat. It's like they're trying to convince you of something while it's happening. And what's great is that we're all there wanting to believe in the magic trick. And what's funny is that I feel like it's like with a bad magician. If you get lazy, it takes us out of the show. We're already there. We want to see, the saw the person in half, or escape from this thing, or do the card trick, make the thing disappear and reappear. But when you get lazy, which is what I think green screen has become now, I think it makes anyone who's wanting to see the trick go, well, I don't want to see. You're not putting in the effort, so why should I?
Yeah, I agree. And I don't want to harp on people who are at home. I guess, sorry, this thought just came to me. Like, I don't want to get on people who turn on the virtual backgrounds, kind of the pseudo green screen for their home when they're doing video.
Yeah.
I don't want to get on people's cases, because I do understand, like, you're at home, maybe you're embarrassed, or you don't want to see, like, you'll see the messy background, whatever. But I think it's almost the same thing as when you have kind of the laziness in a director or producer who's doing that on a set, which is, if you're just a person at home, I get it. Like, you don't necessarily want your personal life exposed, whatever else. I also think there's the other side of that to me is, I want to know who you are. Like, I want to know who you are as a person. Seeing those things, like, tell me more about you as a human being, and we can connect. We're not going to ever, like, many of us are never going to be in the same room as each other. This gives me a better insight to who you are as a person, and I get to learn more about you. Like, you're exposing some of your humanity and the real life behind that. And I think that is an allegory almost for what is missed when directors or people who create content, films, TV shows, whatever, when they use too many green screens, is that no, seeing the boxes and the sets and even if you make mistakes, who cares? Like, seeing all of that tells me more about the story you are trying to tell and makes me feel more a part of it and connected with it. But when you do it and it's noticeable, it makes me feel like you're trying to prevent me from seeing something, or there's something I'm not supposed to be
Yes.
seeing. There's the man behind the curtain. Just enjoy the show. Don't ignore the person over here pulling some strings and stuff. It's like, maybe there is that, but I want you to convince me that I don't even need to know that thing exists. I came to watch a movie. I know it's
Yes.
not real. Of course I know it's
Yeah.
not real. Like, movies are fantasy. I don't care how serious they are. Movies are fantasy. Like, that's
Yeah.
that's the founding principle of these things. They're not real. Like, so we all, when
Yeah.
we came in, we all recognize that is the thing. We don't have to talk about that anymore. So when you then make decisions to use like green screens or things of that nature that, when not done well, which is most of the time, take you out of it, it's like, I already know I'm coming into something that's not real, and now you're forcing me back out of it again by seeing something that's even more not real on the screen. It's like, why would you do that to your audience? Like, what it really, to me, it makes me think, like, what was your goal as a director or producer or an editor in even approaching doing this project, if you were not going to put all the time and energy necessary to make sure that it feels as immersive as you can?
Yep. And I that's what I mean by like, and by the way, like, I think this is why we liked The Mandalorian so much.
Yeah.
Is because someone put a lot of love and care into that. And one of the hardest things, it's kind of like keeping a muscle flexed. It's continuing to put the love and care into that. It's easy to kind of like start to like take some shortcuts. Return of the Jedi, you know, things weren't going that well for George Lucas at the time financially, and he was like, hey, you know, those that Wookiee planet that I want them to land, that the rebels fight with the Wookiees, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to cut the Wookiees in half, call them Ewoks. Well, you know, it's cheaper. Costumes are cheaper. The costumes are cheaper. And you know, there's always a way to make something cheaper. And what's funny is that I think when you have someone who's got a ton of money, or you have a big production company that's got a ton of money, and they look at how they could make a movie and they start to cut corners, it becomes a slippery slope as to like, what are you saving money on? Why are you cutting this in favor of that? You know, oh, well, I'm going to try to pick this up in post. It's money is one of those things on a movie set which can solve a lot of problems while generating a bunch more.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start though in a small budget, and I think about movies like Chronicle, I'm trying to think of other really great small anything by John Carpenter. We were talking about this, like The Thing. These are movies that had a very tight budget, had a very tight timeline, and someone said, go make this movie and get it done as fast as you can. There is a terrible / impressive, and I'm gonna qualify it, movie called Skyline. I don't really like this movie that much, but it was made by like two guys and like a handful of people for not that much money, and it is by far like an amazing effort. It looks great, it's got good graphics, it's weird, but it's because when you're working the problem from the bottom up, you with a low budget, you think, well, what can we put our money into? Star Trek 5, Shatner was like, put all the money into a rock monster. Oh, it doesn't look great. It looks like a guy in a rubber suit. Cut it. We're not going to do it. We're on the reverse. Like, I feel like, when movie becomes the money producing machine, like it's, we got to print money.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mandalorian had the benefit of not having a lot of eyes on it, maybe. And now that there's a lot of eyes on it, it's like, hey, like, how do we make the scope a little bit bigger? But how do we make the scope bigger, but we don't have to pay more? It's green screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your natural background. Hey, you know what, Rich? I got to tell you, I only just recently noticed your sign. I thought it was a TV that said like live with Rich Vibes. I only just realized the other day that that's just your overlay in whatever software you're using, OBS or VMix or whatever. I didn't realize it until the other day when you moved and your shoulder went underneath it, or went underneath it because it's an overlay. I was like, oh, I just thought that was a TV. It was really crystal clear in the video. I'm like, you even fooled me, dude. Like the way it's set up totally fooled me.
100%, I'm with Jeff on that. If check out Rich's show on Sunday. It is one of those. It is a great overlay. And that's what I mean. Like some people are able to pull it off well. I have not been able to get it done at all, and I feel like I'm always struggling with the lighting.
Yeah, the lighting's the hard. Lighting is. I mean, as we talked about already, lighting is one of the hardest things. One of, if not the hardest thing, in my opinion, on the to deal with on green screen, or even, I mean, that's why they went to the volume in the Mandalorian, is because how do you do the lighting? How do you make sure that the lighting matches what you're going to put there in computer animation later on? Because you're not doing the computer animation 2 hours later after after principal photography wrapped up. You're doing it months later or weeks later or whatever. Maybe there's some pickup shoots later on. It's being done later. And so someone going back and trying to edit that stuff in, how do you make sure that you had the lighting you put on the actors then, and in post, how do you make sure that you line those things up? It doesn't always work. Actually, it rarely works well. Like sometimes it works good when there's enough distraction so you're not paying attention to it. I think is more often than not. That's probably an oversimplification, but the places I think that that take me out of it the most are, I mean, the first Transformers movie, we've mentioned this before. I liked it because there was a lot of classic elements to it. Like hearing the sound of Optimus Prime, hearing his voice, I was like, oh my God, I'm like 8 years old again. Like this is blowing my mind. Yeah. Hearing the sound of them transforming, I was in heaven. Like those things made me super duper happy. But when they would do big action sequences and they move around too much, they had the Transformers and the Decepticons so overdone with their various mechanical parts moving that to me it was almost like watching The Matrix. The numbers of the Matrix, like it's just so much stuff on screen. I'm like, I had to the second time I ever watched the original Transformers movie, or not original, but the first Michael Bay Transformers. I remember sitting back the second time I watched it going, this is physically hard to watch because there's so many things moving on screen and cameras changing angles all the time that I'm like, okay, dude, you need to, like, this is almost like you should have like a warning in the beginning that says like bright things might cause epilepsy or seizures or something. Like it was too much. And it took me completely out of the entertainment value of the movie.
I completely agree. I remember seeing. I actually watched the first one in IMAX, and I remember thinking, man, like I might need a break. Like this was hard. They were like I remember one of the problems too was that there was all this activity all the time. Like Optimus Prime is going to transform, and so then suddenly his wheels are moving, and then they stop, and then the camera's he's moving, the camera's moving, he's twisting around, all of this stuff's going on, and it was just like, hey, like I don't need to see like the minutia of everything. I am gonna say though that there is a film series that is a guilty pleasure of mine. And I think I've talked about it on the show. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. And I know that it's bad, but they manage their use of CGI really, really well. Oh, that's awesome. That's Rich's channel right there. If you can tune in to Rich's shows on Sunday. I know that Rich can also supply the chat. I believe for us, it's 11 a.m. Pacific time. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yes. 11 a.m. Pacific time.
1 p.m. Pacific. Yep.
So I am going to, I gotta say this, and Jeff, this is terrible, but a movie series that I like is the real great superhero series of its day, not the Avengers, but the Fast and Furious movies. They are terribly amazing. They are the worst movies and the best movies. If you like entire plots that are driven by the phrase family, we got to do it for my family, I absolutely love those movies. But I think there are sequences where I know that's a real car. I know that's a real car doing that. And the stunt work feels dangerous. That's not to say that there isn't like crazy things. Like at one time they're like they're trying to keep a plane on the ground. They're like shooting cables up into it. By the way, anyone who's listening to this is probably like, I can now no longer trust Ryan's opinions in movies. But seriously, give it. It's like when I've talked to people about read the Bible as a literary work. Trust me, it's interesting. If you watch those movies, not for the story, but just like for the magic trick that we were talking about. Oh my gosh, it is some of the best. It is David Copperfield magic. It's not good. It is throwaway movies. But yeah, they are hilariously bad and also oddly like very fun. You can skip past all the drama scenes.
I love the first movie. The first one, I loved watching that movie, mostly because I got so excited when his his 69 Charger, his Charger, when his 69 Charger popped out. When that movie came out, I was still super huge into cars, and when his car popped out, I was like, oh my god, I'm so happy. Like all the other cars, the fast cars, the ones that they tuned up like for street races and stuff, like those are all cool looking and awesome, like gadgets and tuning and all that jazz. But when I saw that Charger pop out, I was like, oh my gosh, I am beyond happy with this. And the second movie came out, and I vaguely remember the second movie, but I think I remember in the second movie being like, okay, that's a movie that happened. But I have not watched any of the movies since that, because every time I see one, there's another Fast and Furious, and this time they're flying out of windows, and this Fast and Furious, they're in another country doing silly stuff. I'm like,
no, Jeff, in the last one, they went to space. They went to space, Jeff. So again, it's so great. So I'm gonna say this: they are terrible movies. They went to space in a car. But I've got to throw this out here. So if anybody wants to doubt me, and I'm taking on all takers, I'm taking everybody on this. Watch Fast and Furious 5, or fans call it Fast 5, and it is actually a really fun movie because it is a heist movie. It takes a little while to get there, but at some point after the first initial 4 movies, they stopped making race car movies, and they were like, oh, you know what would be great? A heist movie. And then suddenly characters who have no background in a thing are suddenly like, Ludacris is like, oh yeah, I know all computers. Tyrese is the face from A-Team. It is like out of nowhere, they all suddenly have the skills to pull off Ocean's 11 like heists, and it is Gal Gadot in the movie, and I remember that before she was Wonder Woman. The guy, there's so many great actors. The guy who plays Han, who is my favorite character, he's playing the same character that he was in Better Luck Tomorrow. And Jeff, you're gonna love this. His name is Han Solo. So we brought it all the way back to Star Wars. You got to check it out.
Really? Do I though? 5. Do I though?
Yes, you do. You do, Jeff. It is. I'm not. By the way, like next week we got to obviously cover a lot of movies. Dune. We got to cover a lot of things, like all this cool stuff that's out there. All this like fun stuff. But I will say, if you have time to watch one movie this week, watch Dune. But if you have time for 2 movies, watch Fast 5.
All right.
It is a lot of fun.
Okay. I will totally do that. Actually, you reminded me of something. Before we wrap up, you reminded me of something. This is right like a night or 2 after Dune release. I still haven't watched it. We'll get around to it. It's been, every time we go to watch it, it's already like 8:30 or 9. And Shanna's like, we'll watch half. I'm like, no. Like, we're gonna watch the movie, or we're not gonna watch the movie. She hates that I do this, but I'm like, no, I don't want to do half of the movie. Oh, come back tomorrow night. No, none of that business. Anyway, someone posted on Twitter, somebody I follow retweeted somebody's tweet saying, like very frustrated saying, oh, I just watched Dune and oh my God, this is ridiculous. I'm sure Lucas is having like a conniption fit. It's going to try to sue them. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, they're just ripping off Star Wars. And I replied back to the original person's thread saying, y'all want to tell him? Like, like, I'm like, and I got a bunch of responses, like just laughing, like, oh, God, it's just, and the person was serious. I'm like, dude, it's like you tried, but you just kind of went here and then you just turned hard left and you completely missed the point. Sorry.
I'm telling you, for most people, there is no history beyond which they can remember. Everything's
Right.
new. The world, by the way, like, what a way to live. That is amazing. You know, it's like, oh, nothing occurred. I was born and then the world started.
I mean, it must be nice.
I remember someone saying that the John Carter movie felt derivative. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's the opposite problem. Barsoom gets you to Dune, gets you to Star Wars. It's a really kind of a funny thing where it's like the DNA is all over the place in this. But yeah, like, George Lucas was reading Dune and going, I don't think the hero's name is Paul Atreides. What's my name? Lucas. Luke. Yes, that's his name.
Nailed it. Like,
yes,
check that
exactly.
one off the list.
Yeah, main character, me. Okay, now I need a guy who like works alone and he's good with his hands and he's like a good pilot. Han Solo, got it. Yeah.
You really think about it, these names are so not original.
Yeah.
I think we need to do an entire episode like on derivative works and just help or inspiration. Maybe we'll be nice and just say inspiration, because so many people out there don't realize, like, first and foremost, I want to say there are no original ideas, but there's not a lot. Like, pretty much anything you watch is inspired by something, which is inspired by something, which was inspired by something. So anybody of any age who's like, no, that was the thing. It's like, but it wasn't though. Like first off, that's just not how it works at all. Like, people are inspired, but then also to look at things like you watch a particular movie and go, no, that's like a direct remake of another movie that had literally already happened, or it's obvious it's taken for three frames. When I ever say people like, oh no, Star Wars is nothing like, I literally see people tweet this. Nothing like Japanese animation, or there's no, like, everyone says a samurai. It's not that's not the same thing. I'm like, oh my God, like, I want to argue with you, but it just feels so pointless because you clearly just like things are just gonna bounce off your forehead. So I'm just not gonna try, because it's literally Kurosawa. Like, it's literally that. All of these things.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No. I mean, it's painful at times because it's like, and don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of things that I go to and then I'm like, oh, I really like that, and then I find out it's like, oh, don't you realize that's based on The Tempest? And I'm like, oh snap, and then my enjoyment level goes higher. But I never watch something and think, oh man, like Shakespeare ripped that off. Like,
what was that movie? Oh gosh, what was that movie that was like 20-something years ago? That was oh my God, I can't remember the name of it, but it was literally The Taming of the Shrew. What was that movie called? With Julia Stiles.
Okay, so yeah, it's 10 Things I Hate About You. I can tell you every one of these Shakespeare movies.
But that movie, it'd be like someone saying, "Oh God, Shakespeare!" Like, ripped them off. It's like, no, this is not how it works. Is literally what. Okay, never mind.
No, and it's like when people found out, like, oh man, like, did you know that George R.R. Martin based some of his stuff on history? And it's like, yeah, man, that's how writers do it.
That's how it works.
The genius is hiding your sources. Genius is just plagiarizing lightly plagiarizing while not getting caught. I feel like most of the time, like, and I'm sure that Jeff, you and I, we work in software. It's a great example. We are often building on top of what other people have done, and then we say, congratulations, me. But I'm amazing. But at the same time, I did it. There's 90% of that code existed, but I did this thing, so it worked. But no, in all honesty, though, a lot of what I feel like creative people are trying to do, or any type of creator is trying to do, is like come up with something, a version of the thing that they like, and sometimes it's on one end of the spectrum and it's fan fiction, and sometimes it's transformative. It's so great that it actually helps to establish a genre, like Tolkien and Lord of the Rings.
Oh my God, yes.
Lord of the Rings is a play on like old things, though, like Beowulf.
Yes.
And but you don't get the Green Knight and Beowulf, and you need those things to get to Lord of the Rings, to get to Game of Thrones. And I think that's what all of this happens. It's this like really great big chain of creativity. And so yeah, it's like I hate when people are upset at that chain for some reason, or they don't understand it. It's like, no, that's just like how it works. Like people see something and it's like, I'm inspired, I want to build my version of that.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so that's next time. We will talk about not derivative works, but inspiration, how people get their inspiration. We will do that. We'll do that. Rich,
I like
thank you.
That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Thank you for being here, buddy. I'm so happy that you're feeling better. It's awesome to hear.
Yeah, Rich.
And
glad you're on the mend.
And for everyone who's catching the show afterwards, we're now everywhere. Like we were streaming tonight on Twitter and Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. Like we're just all over the things, all over the place. So we'll make a point of getting this posted a little bit earlier in the week, so y'all know about it sooner, and know where you can follow it wherever you want. But yeah, right, Brian, this is awesome, dude. If you're on YouTube and these places, hit subscribe, follow us. It'd be great. We'd love to have you.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, be fantastic. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night, day, month, whatever you're at. We'll see you soon.
Hey, bye, everybody.